Welcome to the Imperfect Dads podcast.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Devin.
We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids,
but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like.
Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood.
And how they feel like they're holding it all together.
Or how they're not.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. On this episode, we have on Steve Lamos. Steve is a professor at Colorado University in Boulder, but is mostly known for being the drummer in the band American Football. We talked about his time as a professor, the challenges of higher ed, what we both valued from our college experience, his kids and screen time, his kids playing music, balancing being a professor, parent, and a musician, and how music has inspired us both in our lives. And also just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad. What? Okay, so tell me what you do up at, I almost said up at Boulder, but I guess CU Boulder, or Colorado University Boulder would that be the correct name for the university?
Yeah, they go by University of Colorado.
Okay. Okay, sweet. Because why not? Yeah, of course. So you're a professor there, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a what they call an associate professor of rhetoric and composition in something called the Program for Writing and Rhetoric, and sometimes I'm in the English department too.
Okay.
In July, I'll be there 20 years, which is crazy.
Dude, okay.
Yeah, getting old. And been there. And then in 2014, the band started back up in kind of interesting ways. And so it really is kind of like two jobs or a job and a half, sort of. So the band, they're kind enough to weave in and out of weekends and breaks and things. It's sort of amazing. We've been able to get schedules to line up because all of them have kids, mostly some my age, some younger, some older. And so when it happens, it's a minor miracle each and every time. And it's happened a lot, it's happened a lot in a decade. So the teacher professor thing is my full-time gig and kind of my vocation, and music is an avocation that I am lucky to have.
That's cool. Tell me your timeline and everything, because I feel like you guys released American Football in like 1999. Is that right? So Did you like tour, work on that album for a little bit, and then no, nothing at all? Okay, cool.
No, that was as college friends, and they put it out despite knowing there was no band. Now, Mike was well known in that world before.
Absolutely, yes.
So there's a certain kind of logic to it, but Polyvinyl didn't have to do that. We didn't do a thing for 15 years, which is probably in a certain way to the benefit, because whatever was happening, people were kind of writing themselves onto that music and the imagery and the house stuff.
Yep. As
the internet grew. Yeah. And so we were at the right place in the right time in terms of 99 is right when people are using front page software to.
Yeah.
Well, we were at University of Illinois, so there was something called Netscape, but you might be old enough to remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where it came from. But so there was just kind of these interesting things. Life went on, and I did all the stuff you need to do to sort of get tenure. And it happened right after tenure, which is good, because if it had happened before, I would have been much more hesitant, maybe, because sometimes people don't understand in academia that life happens too. It's been a really interesting, nice balance. But we had kids in that period, and that was really hard. So for a while, I was running around a bunch. My wife was home full time with the kiddos, and that was a lot. But she wanted to be with them at that time, and it's they are who they are because she was with them. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm a stay-at-home parent, and I have been since 2019. So we would have had two kids, and one, let me try and think of how this timeline works. Basically, we both worked full-time for a full year with two kids in daycares, and in Nashville, daycare was the second mortgage. Right. And I've never been someone who's like, I need to be CEO. I need to have this title. I need to have this. I'm just kind of like, well, I'm pretty good at this. I'm just going to start doing this and see what happens with it. So my wife is the type of person who gets into a job, gets into a career, makes everything better, gets promoted, makes everything better, gets promoted. So after a full year of us, it's so hard to connect when your kids are that little already. And then you add daycare, then you add careers, and you add all the stress. And it was like, well, I don't care about if this is my career, I don't care, for the amount of stress we're dealing with. And I feel like stay-at-home parent life is very much like, my son is 3, he'll be 4 in September. And he'll start doing universal pre-K out here in Colorado because it's a great thing to do. And then I know I'll transition into the next phase of my life, even though this is the realistically, this is the longest job I've held in my career, but I also have approached it knowing this is temporary and is for a greater good.
Both Mike and Nate have been primary caregivers for a lot of their kids growing up.
Really?
Yeah, and so they've been juggling band and doing other stuff with really being day to day in their kids' lives. You know, as I say, my kids are who they are because my wife was with them during that formative period, and we face that same thing. It's like we can both work all day long. We're giving all this money to somebody else, and I know she was much better with them when they were really little. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand what these things were and why they just kept pooping everywhere and like didn't like me.
That's right.
COVID actually was a really gift for me. I happened to be on sabbatical.
Okay.
For one of those semesters, and so I watched them do online school and really got to know them in a different way. So weirdly, COVID was like a gift. Yeah, it's a strange thing to say because it was so tragic and so many people had so many problems. But
correct.
In our house, there was a certain upside to that isolation that was a combination of luck and that I have a job that gives things like sabbatical, you know, this sort of privilege that goes along with that kind of thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, whenever COVID happened, I was already a stay-at-home parent and my wife worked remotely full-time. And I was like, this is the definition of privilege. The entire world just shut down and she was able to keep her job and I just kept on doing what I was doing. And I'm like, just gratitude, you know? I mean, that's what I always try to hopefully come back to gratitude if I possibly can whenever the world gets chaotic. Because like, all right, I can't control most of this, but what can I control? A lot of therapy talk, you know?
But I think it's wisdom. I think that's a smart way to kind of try to move through life. And, you know, when you have kids, you're supposed to try to be wise, you know,
have something that has value that you say. Yeah. Yes. That, no, I always tell dads also whenever they have like a newborn, like, hey, the first 2 years, it might be like, for me, I feel like around 2 is whenever I understood how to connect to my kids a heck of a lot easier because I feel like they understood games better. They reacted better. Whereas like the first 2 years is just, you're just meeting basic needs like every single day. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. There are very sweet moments from that, but there's some days where you're just like, you just need to sleep. Like, and I'm tired of convincing you to sleep. So please just go to sleep again, please. So no, so my family has a lot of English majors in it. My sister-in-law our soon-to-be sister-in-law is a professor, got her doctorate at Indiana University and is actually a professor at Columbia. My brother is about to finish his doctorate from Indiana. My wife's brother-in-law is a professor at UMBC, like University of Maryland, Baltimore, so Golden Retrievers. And they're all in English departments. So all of that stress of how do I get tenure, like this is my job security, is how did you deal with the stress of trying to work towards that goal while also trying to be like a present father at the same time?
We waited actually. So
did you really? Okay.
Because we didn't. I was like, no, we're not. Yeah, we finally started trying to have kids, and our son was born in 2011, and I got tenure in 2012. I already knew things were happening. So that's sort of not well. I have quite a few friends who have kids when they come and work through the whole process. Yeah, I don't know. I almost don't even want to talk about higher ed. Is such a mess at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
It's not like don't talk about it. It's just it's so hard.
No, totally.
Things I understand are changing so rapidly, and there's this kind of cultural erosion around what it's for. The computer has convinced folks they don't need higher ed or to be challenged or to hear diverse perspectives on anything.
Yeah.
And so it's not a terribly fun time.
It's not. I'll ask you this. So yeah,
for all of your relatives, like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible time to do this.
It's I'll ask you this then, or to relate it to fatherhood. My wife actually has a master's from Kansas in like higher education. Like she went back to school to learn like how organizations of like school systems work basically. Yeah. And so like we will consistently be like, we're trying to put money away for college and all that. But also I have no idea what college is going to look like whenever one of my daughters goes to school. Have you entered into that mental space at all of like, what will college look like? Do you want your kids to go to college? What will college even be like in 10 years from now?
Well, certainly in the space of I don't know how we're going to pay for it, and working at one, that is a terrifying kind of proposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if I had my way, college, there are certain things about college as it existed 20 years ago and in certain pockets still existed today, it should matter. I mean, there's a vocational training piece to it, of course, and I think that's what most parents care about, but we're supposed to be helping to put students in relationship to their larger world through reading and writing and thinking, challenging them, and we're supposed to be, encouraging / forcing them to debate, including with people they don't agree with and ideas they don't agree with. I hope those things will still be there. I think the worst case scenario is going to be that everything's going to be online and taught by people who are being paid bottom dollar. I've done a fair amount of work with higher ed history and a fair amount of work with higher ed labor, issues of race and racism. I've written books using critical race theory, which again is sort of now a cultural bad word. But I hope that in 10 years, there's still an interest. I think there will be. I think there will be an interest among people who, honestly, like pockets of folks who understand that life is about understanding and overcoming challenges. But the day-to-day discourse around higher ed right now is really, really hard to deal with. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, what do you think it's going to be in 10 years?
I think mostly online, honestly. I think, and that makes me sad because like, if I think of most of the people I'm friends with, I'm 37, but I graduated undergrad in 2010. And like most of the people I still talk to today are friends I made my freshman year of college. And it was because I was put into a freshman dorm with a community bathroom and you couldn't stay in your room and I didn't have money to eat out. So I had to eat at the cafeteria every single day. And like, who were most of the people in my wedding? They were either 2 or 3 friends from high school, or it was half high school and half college freshman year friends. So like the social aspect of it is the one that I feel like I worry the most about. But also I know I'm raising kids in a generation that is very much like all of their friends are made online. My kids want to already like FaceTime all their friends. And I'm like, no, have them over for a play date. Like, so already I'm like, how do I very naturally like talking to people who are physically around me and value that. So how do I embed that into my kids? And like college was a big part of that for me, was sitting in a classroom, not knowing anyone and being like, you got to make friends. You got to know who these people are. Figure it out. Here you go.
I wrote something. Illinois was responsible. My wife and I met there. I did my PhD there. This rock band that people seem to be interested in arose from exactly that. We didn't have anything better to do. There were, these Midwest college towns were really sort of incubators for just, it's important for people to figure out how to overcome boredom or non-scheduling. And we loved music, but it was in part because it was a thing to do. We did it a lot. We lived in close proximity. There were faculty all over the place, but there were just other kids. And a residential college thing, I sure hope it's still around. I hope it's not just perceived to be a vacation because, I tell my undergrads all the time, if they ask about the rock band, that, it existed because we were in a time and a place and we did house shows and all of it comes from that space. And if we lose that space, we're giving up something important. And these spaces are awfully crucial. I teach writing. I've been doing the same kind of teaching for almost 30 years, if it's not graduate school. And I'm convincing students, you can use AI if you want to. I'm not even checking anymore. I can tell when you in something that doesn't sound like anything you've given me so far. It's obvious that you're doing it. But moreover, like, what do you think you're paying for? What is it like? What do you imagine getting out on the other side? Because I can tell you when somebody writes me an email using AI, I don't even respond to it anymore because you haven't even pretended to put forth the effort. Like, so that's a really, those are honestly existential questions. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be a student? What are you paying for? And it's higher ed's own fault that it's so damn expensive.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's not entirely true. There are things we do badly. There's a cultural erosion. There's no more public support.
Yes.
When I went to Illinois, I think their budget was something like 40% from state taxes.
Okay.
Our budget in Colorado is, I think next year is going to be 2.7% state funding. The rest is all private tuition.
Oh, and aren't you guys like one of the biggest state colleges? I mean, I would assume you're one of the more well-known or more well-funded like colleges in Colorado, or is it like Northern Colorado or something like that?
No, we're the flagship. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah,
university, but it's been that way here for a long time. There's kind of like this Western mentality out here where all taxes are bad taxes and supporting education. It's different, coming from the Midwest. It was it was just a different mindset. And so I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, I guess their dads listening to this. So yeah, they probably care about things too. But it definitely, where am I going with this? Hired's going to be prohibitively expensive in 10 years. It already is, I think. But I hope that we can preserve pieces of it. And I hold out hope that somehow there will still be scholarships for kids who are good at doing academic things. And maybe that'll help us out. We'll see.
I am also from the Midwest. Are you originally from Illinois? Is that where you're originally from, or where are you from?
Outside of the burbs. I see your Indiana shirt. Are you Indiana?
I'm a Pacers fan. But yeah, no, I am actually fascinated by how many people in Colorado are like displaced Midwesterners. I've met more people from Big Ten schools out here than I ever did living in Indiana. It's very crazy to me.
It turns out my family story is not that different from a lot of people. A lot of folks drove for kind of it was like middle class vacation was to drive west, and they would bump into Estes Park and then turn around and go back. We did that every other year, for 15 years or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of folks. It is very Midwestern here in certain ways, and then there's sort of an infusion of LA.
Yeah.
In a certain way too. So it's a little bit of a mix, but I'm with you that I think day to day feels fairly Midwestern here. There's Midwestern, my East Coast friends say, Midwesterners stab you in the back, East Coast people stab you in the front. Like there's that whole Midwestern like niceness to a fault, but you're really judging the whole time.
Yeah, of course.
But also, I feel real comfortable around Midwesterners. The people my family and friends are mostly share that background. So.
Yep. Nope. Same. It's actually been very refreshing. It is refreshing to be around people from like a Midwest background. And I'm sure it's just because it's where I grew up. And it's just more familiar, I guess, So for most of your time of being like a musician and a professor, I know you guys started doing touring again in like 2014. In the past, like since your kids have been born, how much of your life has been more? I feel like you've probably been more of a professor than you have been like a touring musician. Which one do you feel like, which headspace do you feel like you've lived in more?
Oh, yeah, no, I for sure that the professor stuff is full time and the band stuff is serious but pretty part time.
Yes.
But yeah, I think they complement each other pretty nicely, and it's at times anyway. Part of my job is to write things, and I've been writing more and more about how there's a kind of resonance between the rhythmic activity of teaching and writing, say, and then the rhythmic activity of playing the drums, which are themselves rhythmic.
Yeah.
So and when it's good, it's very good. This year's been a little bit tricky because was the 25th anniversary, and so we did more during the semester, almost every other weekend. It felt like all semester long, and it was probably just the absolute maximum of what I could personally sort of give. Teaching teaching writing in particular is just a lot of time and effort. But yeah, I don't know. I like living in the middle. Sometimes I fantasize I'd do music more if I had the chance. So if you know anybody looking for 51-year-old half deaf drummers, you send them away. But I think that is just a fantasy. But if I can keep this going, if we as a band can keep this going, it's a really great. They play off each other nicely. We're going out in a couple weeks, and I can't wait. I'll be off of school and ready to just enjoy that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. You don't go and busk like Pearl Street or anything like that? You don't just go down and start a drum circle or anything like that when you get bored?
Oh, that's not my vibe. I was during that 15-year break, I played all the time. I just didn't really didn't really play for people. But one of my favorite gigs during that period was I played in like a Doors cover band.
Seriously?
They would that band would draw people around here, and like the Doors, I didn't know them that well. Some of that stuff was kind of cool. Like there was a little improv-y dimension to it, and like we would watch a lot of their live shows, and there's a lot of kind of poetry, almost like slam poetry, improv mixed with theater.
Very much so, yes.
So that was my Boulder hippie days. I really did enjoy it. They were good guys, and it was fun. This kind of indie music doesn't really play here. This is not the primary space for what it is that American football does. That stuff plays better in other spaces. The music here is either EDM or sort of bluegrass or jam band stuff. It seems.
Yeah, Yeah. No, I grew up listening to the Doors a lot, and I have found that the Doors are not a commonly shared, like, everyone loves them. I feel like for the Doors are weirdly polarizing. Like, I love them. Like, I can't think of their keyboardist's name right now off the top of my head.
Of course.
But freaking like you listen to the, like, whenever I realized that for some of their albums they didn't have a bassist and it's just him playing bass lines, I'm just like, whoa, hold on. I have to re-listen to this entire album. I wasn't listening to this correctly at all. Give me a second.
No, everybody I know hates them. If it's almost like I just start trotting that out when I want to piss people off. Like, but I do because they were obviously jazz nerds.
Yes.
And I grew up a jazz nerd too. And they'll even quote little kind of jazz riffs and stuff once in a while. And it's just, they weren't, I'm not saying they're a jazz band in any way, shape, or form, but I think there was a sensibility of like, let things kind of, breathe a little bit, kind of play off each other a little bit. And when they weren't, when Jim Morrison wasn't, drinking himself to death, was occasionally kind of interesting.
Yes, whenever he wasn't drinking and flashing the crowds and stuff like that. They were a great band.
All that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was just such a strange time culturally.
Yeah. Are you saying they were strange days or people were strange? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I had a poetry professor in college say, he was trying to explain the difference between poetry and lyrics and saying, Doors is one of my favorite bands. Don't read a Jim Morrison poem. That was sort of the typical message. So yeah, strange days and people are strange and like love me too. Oh, they're great as lyrics, like as poetry. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, I did not anticipate talking about the Doors with you.
Yes, that's funny. Since you just did a pretty good tour, you're about to go on tour for the summer again. What's that like? Like, how do you mentally process that? Like, as a dad, are you trying to figure out ways like to connect with your kids while you're on tour? Anything like that?
We build them short by definition. I mean, our tours are typically 3-4 days.
Cool.
It'll be the longest one we've done in a while, and it'll be 2 solid weeks. And so, 3-4 days is check in on FaceTime a little bit. But they're at 13 and 11. I'm not 100% sure they notice I'm gone. Over 2 weeks they will, but we ran into. I'm blanking on who I was talking to about this, but somebody fairly recently. They're kind of like mid-30s guys. Talking about 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, because they all had young kids at home. And I'm guessing that's stressful, of course, but I'm also guessing there's probably a way to make that work if it were for a 4-month stretch or something where you could sort of be present and absent. I think because I'm going to be in summer vacation.
Yeah.
Where I still have research and writing stuff to do, but that's my time. I don't have to teach. I don't have to deal with any administrative BS. I can't wait. And, I'll check in with them. That's the only set of trips we have this summer, though, with the band. So I'm also just looking forward to reconnecting. We're going to go on an actual family vacation for a long time. So I'll make it up to them that way. But they'll have to notice I'm gone first.
I can't. So my kids are still young enough that like they're dependent on me for like all the cooking and all that stuff. So the thought of them being like 13, 11 and like 8 and not caring if I'm home or not, I'm like that. I know that exists. I know that's in the future. But I also can't believe that that'll ever exist.
I would hear these talking heads saying this, and I'm like, that's bullshit. That
can't happen. That's not going to happen.
But you wake up one day and it does. But, they both play. The kids both play. I just 20 minutes before we got on, I was bringing them home from music lessons, and the big one plays violin, and the little one plays piano, and they have this amazing teacher who's sort of renowned for both. And it's cool to watch them become little people. And she was saying, they actually starting to sound like musicians, both of them, not just kids kind of sawing away, but like actually trying to make music. And that made me real happy because she's quite a special teacher. So that's one of the cool things about going through all this.
Awesome.
Having those kids around.
Yeah, I do think, did I see that you posted because I know you did a tour where you went to like China and Japan and everything. Whenever you landed, did you make it did you go to one of your kids' recitals whenever you got back in town?
Yeah, I think I got in at 1 a.m. and the recital was the next day at 10 o'clock or something. So I sort of kind of, and that, boy, I will never do another. I love playing. We were in China, we were in Taiwan, and we were in Japan. It was unbelievable. It was rough to do that on a spring break, though. came back and went to the recitals. But I didn't even know they were doing it. I was so out of it,
Yeah.
My wife's like, hey, they were playing right down the street. We got to go. That was awesome. It was really, they played real well. And it was a very kind of special moment to be able to, and it's a little church like right down the street. And my son is like, he's playing and it's kind of, resonant, reverberant in the room. And my daughter was playing a grand. They have an actual Steinway in this place.
Ooh, okay.
Behind such a thing.
Yep.
That was cool. Yeah, it was a cool thing. So I was proud of them, and I try not to do too much because we don't let them on social media. I can see as a grown up just how addictive and crazy it is. I've been like having to I gotta do less of this. I feel like I've had to do it in order to get some musical things, achieve some musical connections, including the one that you and I now have. Like
pretty much yes.
Stuff, but man, I don't want him on it. Not as long as
nope,
because it's gonna be bad.
There's like the sentiment of if you want to end your child's childhood, just give them a cell phone, and I find it hard not to agree with that because even my oldest, the 9-year-old, like we've got her like her own like Chromebook basically so she can practice typing because she's behind because we've kept her off computers for so much. And we're like, all right, what are the parental controls? How locked down is it? Like, because it's just so easy to explore. And curiosity is good, but it can also be very dangerous at the same time.
Well, and I'm not going to kid you. One's upstairs playing God knows what video game, and the other one's probably in the other room playing a different God knows what.
Yeah.
So it's not like, we've
understand that.
Out. It's like, all right, no, please. I don't even know. So there's a balance in this stuff, but all that is to say that it's cool to watch them become their own people. And I think music that, interestingly, both of them are, I don't know if your kids are into this Duolingo stuff. Do you know what this is?
I've done it for myself, but we haven't done it for them yet, but I do love Duolingo.
My son told me the other day, he's like, I'm learning Russian. I'm like, yeah, right. Every day. He's like, no, here. The horse eats the cheese or whatever. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Because he's such a video game head. He connects with that at the level of they do this gamification. There's some people in education who talk about this, the gamification of learning, and he's sort of living proof of that. And my daughter's teaching herself some Spanish. I think she's just more bookish naturally. But that's astonishing. And I took language classes in college even that I would say my daughter knows as much functional Spanish as I learned in 2 years at the University of Illinois.
Yes.
Having to satisfy a language requirement. So that's really kind of interesting. I think a proof that certain kinds of technology are obviously indispensable to us now.
Yes.
Including this one. We couldn't do this easily without what we got going here. So
nope. It's a constant I don't even know what to call it, but like social media is a great example of like, all right, I have something going on. I would like to promote it. What are people normally looking at? They're looking at social media feeds. Cool. I should probably get my own social media feed so I can promote whatever I've got going on. What did you just do? I just got a lot of dopamine hits and now my brain chemistry is rewired. Awesome. How do I undo this? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, boy, it's palpable, having to force myself to really put the damn thing down and read for pleasure, and that sort of stuff. Because, the longer I think there's clearly a difference between, and social media, any tool has more positive and more negative uses for sure. But I think it's probably behooves all of us to keep the kiddos away from the more dangerous tools until it's sort of inevitable or necessary in some way.
Yep. Or just their brains developed enough to know how to use it and how to understand it, know? Right. Little things like that. So, as someone who performs music on a regular basis, did it like stir up any emotions in you to watch your kids like do a performance?
My father, we have sort of a complicated relationship to say the least, but he took me on stage at age 8, I think, the first time. So a friend of mine studies something called intergenerational literacy, things that families pass down. So these kids are like third generation. My dad was long dead before they came around, but that whole legacy of like he made me and my brother practice and he took us to concerts and sometimes it was annoying, but then I ended up performing with him in a way that, here 50 years later, I found an old stash of books he had as a teenager of music books from the and one stops in 1947. So it's, you know, it's like the 20s through 47 pop music. It's fascinating, and I'm so glad that mine are interested. Like my wife, she's born in the States, but her parents are both Irish. Okay. Actually, he says he plays the fiddle. All he listens to, I go yell at him to turn down his Irish music. I'm like, it's too loud. You know, he doesn't like contemporary pop or rock or any. He hates the stuff we do. This is crap. You know, he wants to play the fiddle. So I'm like, all right, that makes me happy. My daughter is into like The Cure and stuff like that. That's cool.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. Do your kids play?
No, they don't. My daughter has shown some interest in piano, but every time I try to teach her piano, because we have like an electric keyboard, I play guitar and can fake my way through bass and mandolin if I need to.
Nice.
Yeah. But every time I try to teach her something, the two younger ones come up and slam on the keys, like right next to her. So I've tried to do she likes Taylor Swift a lot. So I've figured out a couple of very simple Taylor Swift songs on piano. And I'll chart it out or write the notes and be like, hey, listen to the song. Here are the notes for it. Can you feel this out and everything? I'm going to go with your brother and sister into the basement. You've got maybe 5-6 minutes. Do what you can and we'll see what happens. So, and I'm always like, do you want to take lessons? Do you want to have someone really teach you how to do this? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, cool. I still want to make this available to you because for kids in general, whenever they have a curiosity and they can explore it, you kind of want to be a guide, right? You want to lead them through that. So she's not taken any piano lessons yet or anything. And my other kids just like to strum guitars as they possibly physically can, which is another thing. But no, not yet. We'll see. I feel like I need one of her friends to get into it a lot. And then she'll suddenly be like, now I want to learn this. So that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I hear you. There are a lot of ways to do this, and we took the more coercive route, which is you are doing this.
Yes.
But that was done unto me.
Yeah,
and there's a huge, dark side to that, which is you can poison, you can make kids want to hate it. But honestly, we were talking about the video game thing before. The compromise was sort of like, all right, this is part of your chores for the day, homework, and this music stuff, and then when you're done, you can do the things you want to do.
Yes.
So that's a double-edged sword too, right? Because I got now 2 video game addicts, but at least they practice their instruments. So, there's a sort of there's a million ways to go at this. And I think there's a certain wisdom to they will gravitate toward it when they're ready approach. It's just never been, we've taken almost the opposite approach, which I think has pros and cons,
Yeah.
So, and one of my neighbors is very into just letting his child play when they want to. And it's like that kid is artistic in a different kind of way. It's not about doing stuff to get video games. It's because this kid is way into music.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of ways to get there.
There are. Now, growing up, I let me try to think of how it worked out whenever I started playing guitar. I feel like I would do guitar was the third instrument I tried. I think I tried trumpet. I cannot play trumpet. I know you're good at trumpet. I cannot. My lips can't do that motion at all. And then I tried to play drums, could not do drums at all. So your 2 main instruments, I'm freaking awful at.
I can't pick a guitar to save my life, but I took violin as a kid too.
Did you really?
Translate. I can't think chordally. It's embarrassing how
that's funny. I tried those 2 instruments through school band and stuff, and never felt like I could get rhythm right, could never get the notes right or anything like that, and felt like someone would be play it like this, and be like, I can't do it. And then my parents, one of our friends had a guitar, so they gave it to me, and I would sit for hours with that thing and just noodle constantly. And then after a year of it, my parents do you want to take lessons? And then I was like, oh yeah, sure, I will figure. Now I want to take lessons. But since it started with there wasn't a grade associated with how I was doing, and I wasn't publicly failing with it as well, I actually like the instrument a lot more. So I guess realistically, I've done that approach with my kids as well. Just hey, here's the instrument, mess with it, feel it out, see how you express yourself through it. Because I know for my own self, once you start being here's my expectations of you, then I'm going to be not living up to those. See you later. Don't know what's happening here.
I mean, it's so interesting and ironic because that's what attracted me to all this indie music. I was studying trumpet sort of I was in the music program, as a minor almost in performance. And I just put it away for a year. I couldn't take it anymore. I hated everything about it. I felt like the school piece of it had squeezed the joy out of me. And then I saw Mike with Cat and Jazz. And it was like a lightning bolt, holy shit, they're having fun.
Yeah.
And those guys are, sort of amazingly talented, but they were not trained. They didn't go to school band or any of that stuff. And I had been, sort of was good at, those kind of contest-based things and all that stuff. And I just the draw to this whole scene for me was like, I didn't pick up the drumsticks till I was 21. I had
Are you serious? What?
Well, because but it was inspired by those guys. Like, holy shit, they can do it. I know how to read music books, and I feel like I can sit and I kind of taught myself some basic stuff. And just, man, this punk band needed a drummer, and I was like, I'll be a drummer.
Why not? Yeah.
And there's a certain beauty to that. So it's funny because I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Hey, kids, go practice. And I'm like, I started doing this because I wanted the magic of the kind of screamy rock show and all the hormones and all the connections, friends and stuff that goes along with that. Again, go back to why kids should go to college if they can afford it, because there's people do that. Where are you going to throw house parties that you can get away with? They're just thinking about how formative house parties were to the whole musical world, and it's because the college kids could get away with throwing them in a way that they couldn't with their parents, and certainly no adults crazy enough to allow those third things to happen in their house. Like you need that kind of naivete and sort of innocence about it in order to grow stuff.
Yeah, and it's so different than in high school, I played with people, or I played not in bands, but we just go over someone's grandparents' house and play in their basement. It just felt so different to be in college, be like, hey, here's where the show's happening. And you go and everyone is the exact same as you, looking for the same energy as you, and have the same hopes of an experience as you do. And those social elements of college, if everything's online, I'm like, how do you get that moment? How do you find that inspiration then?
We're going to cut that part out, and I'm going to play it in my class, to start every single class. But that's exactly it. Because we talk about that all the time. You're never, ever going to be around. These are the 4 years where you're going to be around. And I teach at a residential school for relatively affluent kids, not all, but this is the time when you're going to be around people your age with no particular commitments other than to being with each other. And you're going to make either the most of this or the least of this. And either you're going to party yourself into burning out of this place, or you're going to you're going to take it seriously when you need to, and you're going to have fun when you need to. I actually love that about CU students. Our best students are really good at balance, much better than the Midwesterners, who are just sort of grade grubby and whatever sometimes. These kids know when they're doing it right, they know when to turn it on, and they know when to kind of let it coast. And I think that they're the healthiest bunch. I also, though, there are a lot of temptations in Boulder and in the surrounding area, and I mean that in every way, that sometimes get in the way. But boy, 4 years of being around other people or with your same interests, energy, and relatively speaking, lack of commitments, at least in the sense that you're not working in the salt mines before you're coming to class. Although many of my kids do work, I'm actually astonished at how many of my kids hold down, 25 hours a week or sometimes even more. Some of my best students worked 40 hours a week nights. It's crazy. And he showed up every day and sort of did his, he did the work for my class. So college is changing because it's so expensive. Nonetheless, I think there's some value in reminding people what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. No, I still remember whenever getting married, all my friends who weren't married, and how I used to hang out with them was just go over their house and kind of sit there for 3 hours. And then I got married and do you want to come over? And I'm like, oh, I need a time frame or purpose now. I can't just come over and we play disc golf for 2 hours. It's great. It's fun. It's good to do. But I not that my wife would be mad at me. She'd be like, how was that? And I'd be like, I don't know. It was a thing. I did it. You have to have more value add. I'm sorry, man.
Do you now sit back and think, God, how did I piss away so much time before? I get an hour to do anything now. I'm like, oh man, it's just so funny to think of pre and post kids because and being free and not being stressed or worried all the time is awesome. But it is funny how the kids do make you appreciate when a few minutes lets up.
Yep.
I remember when they were really small, falling asleep for 7 minutes on the floor and being like, that was the best 7-minute nap a human could have, and they're still alive. It has, it has stuck its finger in the socket.
Yeah. Make sure they're still breathing, it could feel cold. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's funny because I've been a dad now for 9-10 years or so, something like that. I think I can count on one hand how many weekends I've had without any kids nearby. And I plan them out so much because whenever I don't have a kid around, I'm like, what do I I'm not meeting anyone else's needs. What are your needs then? Oh, I'm not opening that door. Let's keep that door closed. Oh, I'm going to go see some friends, I guess. What else are you going to do? Eat food eventually? Yeah. And be confused that I'm not responding to anything. And here we go.
Right. Oh, no. I've never been primary in the way that you have. It's much more intense. My wife has said as much. Like there are times when she has said it was hard to remember what things used to be like, because it's just sort of constantly in the moment and present. And I'm not sure I was always the best person to understand or, react to what she needed from me at times then too. And so I imagine that's challenging and even frustrating sometimes.
It is. It definitely is. I mean, I think regardless if you're primary parent or not, your responsibility to a kid whenever they're young is to respond to them and meet all of their needs. And that's just it's the first time in my life I've ever been responsible for someone's physical needs being met on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And to that, I believe in inertia a lot. So all of that inertia is going towards I've even joked about if I go to a soccer game with a friend or someone like that, before we go to our seats, I'll look at them and be like, hey, do you have to go to the bathroom or anything like that before we go down? And then I'm like, Devin, your friend is 37, 38 years old. They know if they have to go to the bathroom or not.
Did you go? Did you go potty?
Did you go potty?
My brother's 47. Oh, did you go potty?
Do you need to go?
I can't be stopping,
So, but yeah, there are moments like that where I'm like, Devin, you just asked a full-grown man if you need to go potty before you go to your seats. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm glad everyone knows I'm a stay-at-home parent, so I get a lot of grace in this area. But when all of your inertia, whatever you're doing in life, career, whatever, whenever it's all going in one direction, you do have to stop that inertia and then be like, hey, man, you're more than just this definition of yourself. Who the hell knows how to do that well?
Yeah, no, that's it. I like that, though. I like that idea of inertia. I'm going to steal that. That's good.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. But no, because you get in a headspace, I'm sure, my wife travels for work from time to time. And whenever she does, there's a definite inertia of I've been the primary parent by myself for a couple of days or something like that. She's been doing work and dealing with all that stress in a different city. And then whenever we come together, it's okay, her inertia is going this direction. My inertia is going this direction. What are the guardrails? What are the safe things you can do to slow that inertia down so you think you can come together a little bit easier, as opposed to feeling like you're undermining each other or you're fighting with each other because she's like, hey, the kids need to do this. I'm like, no, they did that yesterday. Why didn't you tell me? Because you weren't here. Why? And then I didn't want this to be a fight. I was just trying to communicate. I'm sorry.
Right. No, I hear you.
Yeah. So, but no, let me think of what else other questions I want to ask you. I love the entire scene that American football was, because I grew up in the Midwest and loved all of that music as well. So whenever you did your episode with Dan, I was very much oh. Then I started following you on Instagram, and then I think I sent you a random message and you responded. I was like, oh, he looks like he's a dad. I wonder if he'd ever come on. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So for multiple reasons, thank you I've listened to your band, for 25 years. All of Mike's stuff, all of the Chicago, that era, emo, indie, whatever the hell you want to call it, Captain Jazz, Owen, all that stuff I've listened to for a long time. So before I end the episode, I just want to make sure to take the moment to say thanks for all the music that you have created, the music you continue to create, because it inspires people a lot.
Thank you so much. To be a part of it, the older I get, and you were asking about kids before, just to participate in whatever that energy source is in the universe of positivity or whatever that brings people to music and makes them want to create something beautiful or participate in beautiful things for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's no practical value in it, but it does make the world go round. And when we get to travel to different places and meet people with whom I meet somebody I can't communicate with them because we don't have the same language, and yet somehow they know this band from college 25 years ago. It is really, really special and pretty humbling, honestly. And so thank you for saying that. And I'm appreciative to be a part of it, because it is such a fractured and strange world at the moment. It seems like it's a good thing to recognize when there are these positive energies out in the world, and, to seek them, to actively try to participate, cultivate, and sort of you have a responsibility, if you're lucky enough to be part of it, to pass it on to somebody else. And so I'm super grateful. Yeah, that music you all referenced meant the world to me too. It saved me multiple times. I've lost count of how many times music has saved me, figuratively and literally. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. No, I think The best way I've known how to say it is like sometimes you listen to a band and you've had a feeling, an inertia, something about yourself for like however long, and then you listen to a song and you're like, that's what that was this whole time. That's what I've been feeling this entire time. And the beauty of that moment and that connection is there's so much pure humanity to that I'm just like, I want my kids to be so involved with music because it's opened so many like emotional doors within myself that I would have had no idea how to open if they didn't.
And that, not to be corny, that's what college or whatever, that's what education is supposed to do too at times and places. You just talked about it. It puts you in relation to the world in a healthy way. If it goes right, you grow, the world changes, even if it's an infinitesimal way, the world becomes less bad and more good, right? It changes in some sort of positive way, or when things resonate, it feels like there's more energy happening than whatever went into it, right? You hear or see something beautiful, and like everything's more vibrant and alive. That's part of what we're supposed to be doing. Music happens to float your boat, float my boat. Those of us who are music people, we're supposed to be, as educators, encouraging people to seek this out for themselves, because otherwise they're going to seek it out here. And this is cheap and easy in terms of getting it, but it's also it's far more often sort of surface level than deep. And what you're talking about is sort of a deep relationship between a self and the world. And if you feel that and believe it, you almost, I think you feel this immediate obligation to put somebody else in that space with you, or whatever, address whatever might be there in their way materially or whatever, to, this is what we all seek in some way, it seems to me, is to thrive. And music is one of those energies. And there are lots of them, but music is a special one that invites us to think that way.
Yep. Now, I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that because if I tell someone about a band, what I want them to feel, I don't want them to like the music. I want them to feel the emotion that I had. And as I've gotten older, I've realized like, you can't expect that of someone. Like you can't go to someone and be like, hey, I want you to listen to this song. It made me cry. And then they're like, oh, do I need to cry when I listen to this song? So I've learned how to like communicate it differently. Like, oh man, I listened to the song for some reason. It made me feel things I didn't anticipate to feel. Hopefully you feel that too. But like a 16, 20-year-old version of me was like, you have to listen to the song. It made me cry. Do it right now. And I'm like, too aggressive.
If you don't cry, you're stupid, whatever. Yeah, no, it's so funny. Students did presentations yesterday, and one student was talking about, I would just characterize it in general terms, but the difference between coercing someone, say, to change view versus an invitation to dialogue. And like, that's what you're talking about. I think you hear something and you just want to invite people.
Yeah.
You invite them to try to have the same kind of positive experience you've had, and you hope that they do. Yep. And if you don't, I think that is like you, as I've gotten older. When they don't, it's not your fault. It's not their fault.
No, it is what it is.
If you just try to set up the situation to maximize the chance that they're going to have a positive experience, because if they're having that positive experience, everybody wins. Music is one of those amazing. My kids like sometimes do team sports and are bummed out, and I'm like, well, that's why you should practice, because you can do this until you're old, and it's not about winning and losing. It's about It's about, these musical things are really just about. Bill Frisell is one of my favorite musicians and favorite humans. And he said very recently, in response to somebody talking about chops and shredding, he's like, this is not a competition. We're simply trying to save each other's lives.
Yeah.
He's like my favorite thinker these days. And I just thought, what a beautiful way to imagine music. We're just trying to save each other's lives. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah. I don't want to be like super hippie or whatever, but I feel like music can make you connect to the collective conscience, like Absolutely. it makes you realize like, oh my God, we're all in this together. We're all sharing a moment. This is all beautiful. And music has always been my way to do that. Or films, you go to movie theater and, everyone experienced the same thing, or had the same, at least stimulant to experience the same thing. And like, there's such a unique connection that comes from that. Or like, that's where you go to concerts with your friends. Cause then you're like, oh man, we might not have talked for 5 years, but wasn't that concert great? And it's like it's your reference point of how you can feel connected to someone.
Amen. And I've had, I was lucky enough to teach writing on music this semester. I get to teach it maybe every third semester. I had some smart kids helping me to understand hyperpop, because when I hear that genre, it's just like
too much.
I feel immediate connection, but they were talking about how there are a lot of trans hyperpop artists and how hyperpop, the genre of hyperpop, tends to engage with issues of body and transformation and kind of legibility or not. And I thought that was super smart and important for me to know.
Yeah.
I had several other kids writing to me about EDM and how it's a kind of music that deliberately tries to impact the body directly. They were talking about how it's less about kind of star power and rock tropes and like worshiping your idols than it is about anonymous people making stuff. And I thought that's a smart, and that's therapeutic almost in a way. I thought that was smart. So man, another fascinating thing about all of this, and the fact that we're blabbing here for no particular reason other than it's fun. Like to think about these issues, music just attracts a kind of curiosity that ends up teaching you stuff. I learned more about race and racism in this country as a young kid from my music biography books than I ever did in school. So there are ways in which to truly admire an artist is to take seriously the conditions that they come from and to assume a responsibility for, why is Miles, I grew up such a big Miles Davis fan. Why was Miles getting beaten by cops in front of the club where his name was on the marquee? I mean,
why do you think that was?
How does this work? This isn't the United States that I don't see this in my neighborhood or whatever, and I haven't heard about this in school, but why do I consistently feel bad about this? Oh yeah, well, that's because
that's why.
You see these beautiful things, and you have to come to terms with the history that shapes the people who create that music. So what an honor to be sort of part of conversations about this stuff, because it ends up, I think, I'll speak only for me, it has helped me to understand the world, I think, a little bit more fully than I might otherwise. Or try to understand it. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Yeah. No, if I want to nerd out a lot, I will look at horror movies in specific decades and time frames, because it always tells you what people were scared of back then. In the 50s, everything was radioactive. What was happening back then? Everyone was scared of nuclear bombs still. Culture, media, and what art always tells you what people cared about in that time frame. So
exactly correct.
It's a doorway. It's a doorway to know. If I were to learn about another culture, my first thought would be, how did they entertain themselves? Because that'll probably tell me about a lot about caste systems, culture, everything involved.
I think that's very wise. I think that's part of the attraction of this. And again, we're back to like, why would you study things that aren't immediately practical? Well, because they're interesting. Interest ultimately will propel you to make connections that you wouldn't have made otherwise, and you're going to find insights and new things that they don't have any immediate value, but they might have value down the road, or just make you more aware or more wise or something.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know about you, but one of the main things I'm hoping to teach my kids is just curiosity and empathy. And if I don't embody that myself, how the hell am I going to expect them to learn it?
That's it. Because that's part of what we're supposed to be doing, is helping them bring them toward those places. Because the world doesn't seem, especially our world at the moment, doesn't seem prime for empathy or prime for positive connection.
Nope.
So, we've brought these tiny beings into the world, and it's our responsibility to try to help them, develop what they need to navigate it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So to wrap up, how I normally end these episodes is just by asking like a series of 5 questions. They're like kind of icebreakers. They're kind of fun and everything. And they aren't like rapid fire. So I'll start with the first question. Do you have a least favorite kids show? Like, do you have a kids show that your kids would watch where every time they turn it on, you'd be like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life?
All of them.
There's not one you like at all.
I detest them all equally. No, I'm sorry. That's my kids. My kids now watch stuff far beyond their years. It's because I was just like, I can't do this. Whatever's happening with this, I don't know. So no, you shouldn't ask me that, because they watch stuff.
Awesome. No, that is honestly, since you said Caillou, I can always tell when someone had kids in like the late aughts, early 20s, because every single dad is like, I still don't know what Caillou was. What was he? He was awful. I hated Caillou, and they have this weird rage about
Caillou's like trying to be nice. I know. I single out Caillou. I hate them all. Yeah. I hate them all equally without any sort of judgment other than that.
That's awesome. Okay, next question. TV related also. Do you have a favorite TV or movie dad? You can do one that like you actually like whenever you were growing up, this was like a TV dad you saw all the time, or you're like, hey, that guy actually was a dad that I would hope to be.
Homer Simpson, and the guy, the guy from that '70s show who's
Red Foreman, yeah.
He's always calling his kid a dumbass
every time.
I don't know. Those are tongue in cheek. Ah, gosh, I don't know.
I usually say Homer Simpson.
Honestly,
if someone says who's your favorite TV dad, I always say Homer Simpson because I was raised on The Simpsons.
Okay, all right. Obviously not for any good reason.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a legit one. I can't. I don't know. No, I guess I'll go with those. I guess I'll go with those guys.
That's awesome. Okay,
I like the dad from Friday. Actually,
okay.
He's one of my favorite movie dads. I always did like that guy too.
Yes. Next question. You might not have this anymore since your kid's a little bit older. Do you have a go-to replacement curse word? Like whenever you really need to curse but your kids are around, so you're like, I probably shouldn't say that word. Did you have a word you would go to?
No, I haven't replaced it. No. Sorry. I'm really bad at this. No.
That is fantastic.
I'm shocked that my kids are relatively like they don't say the words that I say, but no, I've not been good at replacing them. This is not this. Yeah, see, imperfect dads. I was just checking.
Yeah. You get double check that name. Just make sure. Yeah.
Dads, but no, I don't. I don't replace curse. You must have one.
My dad always used the word peanut. Peanut was the word that he would say, which never made any sense in any scenario. My favorite format, if I had to choose like a formula for a replacement curse word, it's to say son of a, and then fill in the blank with whatever I visually see in front of me. It's like son of a lamp or something like that. So therefore I get, 3/4 of starting to curse, but then pull out at the last second.
Again, I don't replace. Sadly.
But that's a good insight into how you probably are. We're just like, well, Steve is Steve. That's who he is.
No, it's insight into something. It's probably actionable, too. There's probably some legal implication for DCFS or whatever.
Yeah, right. Okay, next question. I'm hoping you have an answer for this one. Do you have a favorite activity or toy that you play with your kids? Like something that you do with your kids specifically?
Yeah, we ride bikes a fair amount. My older one likes to ski. We also play something called Apples to Apples regularly, but we do it in sort of a silly way where we mix the cards up or we try to do, I don't know. So outdoorsy things. We're also big dog walkers because we have 2 dogs. So a lot of outdoor activities. The music thing, I'm not sure they perceive it as fun. That's just, and then board games here and there. And then sometimes I watch my kids play these horrible video games and I'm fascinated by how adept they are at whatever horrible things their characters are doing. I'm like, oh, you're 11 and you know how to. Anyway.
Yep. I think it's fun. My daughters are just now getting to the age where they can actually understand board games and actually play like real board games. Yeah. Like we played Yahtzee and like my kids are understanding the sequences of Yahtzee. And like as a kid, I was bored as hell playing Yahtzee.
Yeah.
But at 37 and my 9 and 7-year-old are understanding math and sequences and patterns. And I'm like, oh, this is really fun. Can we play Yahtzee again?
Yeah, my son, I was always pretty bad at chess, but he beats me pretty consistently. Okay. So that's fun to watch that.
Yeah, that is.
That happen. Pathetic.
Okay. Yeah. And last question, do you have like a moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of? Like some part of them where you're like, oh man, I really hope they get to experience this at some point in time.
Yeah, we were talking about music things before, and those are pretty special. My son and I have started backcountry skiing this year, and that's a whole other thing. And there have been a couple moments where it's quiet or we notice something that's going on, and that's kind of neat. And my daughter and I have a kind of walk routine where we she's a funny kid. Something's going on up there where her humor is sophisticated. And so she'll tell a joke where I'm just sort of rolling on the floor or make some sort of witty observation or something. So those are the moments that I feel like we have different. You maybe have the same. I have kind of a different relationship with the 2.
Absolutely, yes.
And what I do with the one doesn't work for the other, and vice versa. But I'm lucky enough to have moments with each of them. And then the music thing's kind of the common thing, the common love-hate thing that we have, I think.
Yeah. Nope. It's funny because like I still remember like our first 2 kids are 23 months apart. And all the comfort techniques my firstborn liked, my secondborn despised. And that's whenever I started to realize like, These are very different people. Okay, good to know.
Ours are like 20 or something. So I'm right there with you. Like, and they are their own beings and their own creatures, and it's healthy for us, I think, to recognize that. Does the third must knock down on its axis though? Does the third first or the second?
So the third born is also a boy, so we had to switch genders also and like get used to different genders. So no, like he's just like, we're like, wait, is this how we're just used to girls? So like they'll sit down and play with Barbies. He wants to run around in a circle and like all the time. And I'm like, wait, I've never worried about like, how do I make sure the girls get their energy out? With him, I'm like, all right, let's go on the trampoline. Like, let's go. So no, it's just completely different world. With him, I'm just kind of like, all right, it's keeps me curious and keeps me learning new things. And that's a good thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yes, very much so. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. This is super fun, super flattering.
And I did, just so you know, of course, put your vinyl in the background the entire time, just over her shoulder.
Okay, that's very kind. I didn't notice that till just now. That's fantastic.
That's awesome. I'm trying to do some more Easter eggs in the background as I do this, and so that's one that I just did for you.
Thank you, my friend.
So awesome. Thanks, Steve. Have a good night. Thank you for listening to the episode.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Imperfect Dads Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to us.
The music is provided by the Wildfeathers.
And all episodes are produced and edited by me.
Make sure to tune in Mondays for new episodes.